So the first thing I want to point out is next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, we will not have Zoom meeting. So again, I want to say it again. Next Tuesday, we will not have any Zoom meeting due to I have school works. Actually, next Tuesday, if we go to class, if we have a class, next Tuesday we don't actually have the class because it's an in-service day for teachers. So I have to go to work actually. So I do want to tell you that we don't meet on next Tuesday. We will meet back the following Tuesday. So if you do need a one-on-one Zoom meeting help with your homework, you have to let me know. And again, Monday is a Labor Day, so I won't be around to help you. So Tuesday, the only thing I'm thinking about is Tuesday. I can kind of like sneak out a little bit and do helping you a little bit of the work here. So let's talk about no Zoom meeting next Tuesday. Anyone have any homework questions? You got 3 homework sections due this coming tonight. 2.6, 2.7, and 3.1. Yep, you got a few questions. Let's start with 2.6 first. So I'm going to share the screen here. So let's start with 2.6 here. By the way, you guys know where to find my videos, right? So I already uploaded into, so if you go to D2L, I re-upload into the Zoom video here. So if you want to see the Zoom video from last Tuesday or today later on, I will put it in D2L here, under here. And also, if you look at this, you also get the old Zoom video. This is where I did this last summer. So I would highly recommend you guys to watch it when you guys go and know this is something helpful. So this is for 2.6 and 2.7, this is for 3.1 and 3.2. So if you need help, and if I'm not around to help you or something else, you can always go to this and just do the Zoom here in this case, right? Watch this. So let's talk about 2.6 first. Does anyone here have any questions on 2.6?
I do, yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I had a question on 2.6, question 4 to start out. I had a question regarding the final part of that problem. I was having issues with, for what is the domain of f of g, I was having trouble figuring out how WebAssign wants the interval notation done for that.
Yep, and I did this before last Tuesday. I don't think so you watched the video yet. It's all right, I'll just do it again. So class, please, if you are not here, watch the video. And you do not need to watch the whole hour-long video because I did this before in last Tuesday class on the Zoom. Mm-hmm. So for f over g, so what we do in f over g for question 4D, so you are dividing. This is divide. So you take these two functions and you divide. So you take x over x plus 7, and then you divide all this with x cubed. The division is the same thing as multiplication, because you can change all the division to multiplication. What you need to do is you have to flip this. So, so this is x cubed over 1. This is 1 over x cubed. Okay. So, so what we do in this case, we can reduce this. So the x and the x cubed become x squared. So what we have in this case is 1. This is 1 because it becomes 1. Then this you will get x squared, x plus 7. So this is question 4D. So once you're reducing this, this is your answer for 4D. Now the question is asking for the domain piece. Okay. As you guys remember, domain, you cannot make this equals to 0, right? So you cannot have this become 0. So we're going to set this equal to 0 and solve for x. Now this is what we call as a factoring piece. So if you have a factoring product here, so you have to make each one of these multiples equals to 0, or make each of these factors become 0. So in this case, x squared is 0. So x in this case is 0 because if you take a square root of 0, it's still 0. For this case, x plus 7 equals to 0. So your answer is -7. So the domain for this case is all real numbers except x cannot be 0 and x cannot be -7. So this is the domain for this equation or this function, this f over g. So how do you write this in an interval notation? So as usual, we always, if you guys doesn't know how to write things in interval notation, I will suggest you to start building a number line. And what is this means that that means that your domain here can be every single number. It cannot be -7 and it cannot be 0. So that means that you will have to write the interval notation 3 times. 1 is on the left side here, 2 is on the middle, and 3 is on the right side. So you have to have 3 interval notation. So how do we write the interval notation for this is it goes from -infinity to -7. And since you cannot include it, so you have to use parentheses. This is how we do the first one. The middle one go from -7 to 0, and you cannot include it. And then the last one goes from 0 to infinity. And then you need to put a union twice. So this is the domain in the interval notation for this question number 4. It go from -infinity to -7, -7 to 0, and then 0 to infinity. You guys know to put this in your answer here, right, Ryan?
Yep.
Yep. So yeah, make sure that if you have 2 answers here, you will have 3 parts of your domain. If you got 4 answers, then you have 3 answers, but 3 not equal to, then you have 4 parts in this case. So yeah, that's how we figure out your, what's the difference between parentheses and brackets? Parentheses means we do not include that. Brackets means we include it. So when you have x is less than 7, that means 7 is not included, so we will use parentheses in this case. When you have x is less than or equals to 7, means 7 is included, we will use a bracket. So that's the difference between a parenthesis and brackets. Someone asked about that. So since we are not including 0 and -7 in this case, so that means we have to use parentheses here. Okay, and all infinities or negative infinities, we use parentheses because we cannot include infinities, we cannot touch it. So, so that's the difference between parentheses and brackets. In your high school, this used to be an open circle and this used to be a closed circle. So that's what you guys learned in high school last time. So we do not use circles anymore, we use parentheses and brackets. All right, anyone have any questions beside number 4 on 2.6? Talk about 2.6 first. Anyone have any questions for me on 2.6? It's time for you to ask me. How do we check? How do you check? You submit your assignment. It's very easy. Go all the way up here, Mike, and you will see your score here. So all the way, do you see the score here? So if you see any sums, and then here there's a point here, this is how you figure out, and this is how I figure out too. So you see here, the 8.8, this is how you figure out. You do not let you submit 5 out of 57 questions. Yep. Yep. So make sure you just go up here on the 2.6, whatever section you have, look at the top here, and then that's how you get your score. Okay. And that's how I see also as a teacher. Right, Ryan, questions you have on 2.6?
Yeah. One last question for 2.6 on number 12. I just had a question regarding, I got the compositions down. I was just having trouble getting the domain of F and the domain of the compositions. Okay, so I got the domain of G.
Okay, I'll teach you. Don't worry about that.
Thank you.
So, oh, no problem. All right. So for question 12, so I just want to point out to you guys that to find the domain and range, you look at the F and G first, okay? So I just want to point out that all cube root function, your domain and your range is all real numbers. That means negative to positive infinity, okay? Same thing with x cubed. The domain and range for this is also same, all real numbers. So if you do the f dot g, g dot f, g dot g, f dot f, whatever we have, you're still gonna have all real numbers. The reason why is because that if you remember the graph for x cubed, a cube root of x, the graph of q of x looks something like this. We call it the Egyptian. And you notice that the domain here is all real numbers because it goes from negative to positive infinity. The range in this case is also all real numbers. It goes from negative to positive. This class will eventually go down and this eventually will go up. Same thing with x cubed. The graph for x cubed looks kind of like a reverse of, reverse of x cubed, cube root of x. And again, the domain is also all real numbers and your range is also all real numbers. So since this question given us cube root and x cubed, so the domain and range of all this is all going to be from negative infinity to positive infinity, all of them. Where's my infinity symbols? You with me here, Ryan?
Yep, I'm following along.
Yep, so all of this is like, so because of their cube root and x cube. Okay. But question 13 is special. Do you need me to do? So all this is the same. So all this, you just copy and paste, they're all the same. Same thing happens to this one also on 13 because absolute value, the domain is all real numbers. Polynomials, domain is all real numbers. So for question 13, your answer is the same. All this is going to be from negative to positive infinity. Okay. I'll give you a question that is not this way. You okay here, Ryan, so far?
Yep, I got it all squared away. Thank you.
Yep. So everything for here. I'll give you something that is not all real numbers here. Okay. So let's say that your f of x in this case is x plus 1 over by x minus 3. And g of x in this case is 2x plus 1 over by x plus 5. Just an example. Okay. Now, this domain is no longer all real numbers. It's because of fraction. So for this, like what you just did on 2.6 earlier that you asked me early on. So for this, your domain for this is all real numbers except what?
For f of x, that would be 3, right?
Yep, you are correct, except 3, x equals to 3. And that's a problem here because of this. And g of x is the same thing, right? All real numbers except for what?
-5.
Yep. So not all real numbers anymore. So when you guys find what is f dot g is, do you guys know how to do this?
Composition, yeah.
Composition. So what is f dot g stands for? Should we put f into g or g into f?
It's f as a composition of g, so
should we put f to inside g or g inside f? This is very important, class. This is the main part of composition. No, you need to read the, so some students who doesn't know this, you always look at the very last of the composition, not the first one. The last one is a G, right? So what you do is you have to take all this G, put it into your F, not F to G. So I want to point out to you guys that those students who doesn't know the composition well enough, who plug into who, look at this and it will tell you if the G comes last, that means you put all the G into the F. So what you do here is all your X that you see here will be changed. So I put a big parenthesis on it. So it used to be X plus 1 and X minus 3. So this X that you see here will be changed to become 2x plus 1 over x plus 5. So all this will change into that. So this is one icky fraction. Okay, it's what we call as complex fraction. So does anyone here know how to simplify this? Yes, this kind of questions will be asked in your midterm. So make sure you guys know how to do this. Does anyone know how to simplify this? Very
Would you
How do
flip the denominator and then multiply it?
good try, but no, you cannot flip-flop that. We find the LCD. So what's the LCD in this case? They have x plus 5 here, right? So your LCD in this case is x plus 5. So what you do here is you multiply this whole thing by the LCD x plus 5. And you multiply this whole thing by x plus 5, the LCD. We can do this is because we are multiplying x plus 5 over x plus 5, which is the same thing as multiplying with 1. And you guys know that when everything multiplied by 1, you get back the same original thing. So this is the same thing. We multiply this by the 1, x plus 5, x plus 5. So the good news is that when you distribute this x plus 5 to the first term, this x plus 5 will cancel with this x plus 5. So what you get here is 2x plus 1, the numerator. And then what happens to this 1 is you distribute to the x plus 5. So you get plus x plus 5. So this is how we reduce this complex fraction to the top one. Okay. Same thing happens to the bottom one. When you distribute the x plus 5 inside, this x plus 5 will cancel with this x plus 5. You will get 2x plus 1 here. But then this negative 3, you have to distribute to him. So what you get in this case is negative 3x minus 15. And now what we need to do here is we just combine like terms, simplify it. So 2x plus x is 3x. 1 plus 5 is 6. Same thing happens to the denominator. 2x take away 3x is negative x. And then 1 take away 15 is negative 14. So this is your f dot gx function. Okay, it's tough. It's not easy. I didn't say it's easy, right? So now my question is, what is the domain of this f dot gx? This domain, pay attention, very important. That's why I told you it's coming in the test. This domain is based on two domains. The domain of f dot g and the domain of g, not f. We don't do the domain of f. Why? Is because the g is the one that we plug in first. So that's the reason why that when you do the f dot g, you have to figure out what is the domain of this and the domain of g. And because the g plugged in first. So what is the domain of this f dot g? It's all real numbers except what? Remember last time you do this, you say all real number except negative 5, all real number except 3, right? So can someone tell me what is the domain of this f dot g here? All real numbers except what? X is, anyone? You guys know how to get these numbers, right? You just set this all equals to 0, right? Yep, negative 14, you're correct. Yes, yes. Same thing, you set this equals to 0 and solve for x, and you get negative 14. So what is the domain of this f dot g? The domain in this case will be him, which is this or this. All real numbers except negative 14. And g says that all real number except negative 5. So both of this. So for this question, your answer will, for this f dot g question, the domain is all real number except negative 14 and negative 5. And if the question wants you to do the interval notation, means you cannot take 14 based on this fellow, and you cannot take 5 based on g. So that means you need to have 3 interval notation, 1, 2, and 3. So can someone tell me what is the first interval notation looks like?
Negative infinity to negative 14.
Negative infinity to negative 14, yep. And I will answer that question, Parker, I will answer that question later on. And the middle one, from negative 14 to negative 5. And then the last one is from negative 5 to infinity. So this is the domain for this case. So Park asked me that why we don't take care of this domain, okay? The reason why is because that if you look at this, the G is the one. So if I kind of draw a picture for this, is that means that if you do the f dot g means whatever you plug in into the G function, the output will plug it into the f function, and then the results is what we need. Okay, so when you guys look at the domain for this case, we look at the domain of what we plug this in first, and the domain of the entire case. So that's why the 3 is not included in this case. However, if I switch this to become G dot F, then yes, then your domain here will include this fellow, not him. So you have to be careful which one is which. So so watch for your domain in this case, especially hopefully that you guys will get this more clearer. So whatever that plug in first is determined by your domain. Okay, and also the final answer is your domain, a part of your domain. Okay, you guys clear with this one? This is tough. I didn't say this is easy. Okay, is this 2.6 you're talking about, Emily? We are still in 2.6. Okay. This is the same thing. Part 11, which part you need to help here? It's the same thing as plugging in. C, oh, G dot G, okay. So what is the meaning when you do G dot G? A G dot G means that you take the G function and plug it back to itself. So the G function is x cubed plus 5, right? This is the G function. And what you do is you just need to plug this with back to the G function. So what we have for G in this case is x cubed plus 5. So that will be what you're going to put in here. So this is usually is x. Now the x is being replaced by x cubed plus 5. And this is your answer in this case, Emily. So please don't FOIL this one out, because if you FOIL this one out, it's going to be horrible. Just leave it as this, x cubed plus 5 cubed plus 5. Okay, and make sure this x is a lowercase, not the uppercase x. Okay, don't use capital X, they will mark you wrong. Okay, all right. You guys already with 2.6 here before we go on to 2.7. Anyone have any more questions on 2.6? 20. For part C, you need, let me just, this one you need part A. Okay, so you need to find what is n dot t. N dot t means you take all this t plug into your n. So you got n dot t in this case is, I don't have time to go through all this class. Square, I think we did the last part on question 3, the domain, right? The asking for Tonia. I think you need to watch yeah, it's the same thing we just did last time. So watch the YouTube video on question 3, the last one. It's very similar to what we did. So so what is going on here is we're gonna plug this 3t plus 2 inside here. So this is for question A. Okay. So for question C, you need to figure out what is the time is when the bacteria reach 1800. So that means this reach 1800. You need to figure out what is T is. This is what question C is. So in order for us to do this, you have to FOIL this fellow out. And this is where a lot of students make mistake here is the FOIL of 3t plus 2 squared. A lot of students give me 9t squared plus 4. And this is wrong. I don't care how you do the rest of it. Anything, this is really wrong. As you guys know in math, it's a domino effect. One, you get one wrong, everything down there is all wrong, I can tell. So can someone tell me why this is wrong? Why this is wrong? 3t squared is 9t squared, 2 is 4. Why this is not 9t squared plus 4? Anyone know why this is not 9t squared plus 4? You have to FOIL it out. So what is a FOIL of 3t plus 2 squared, which is 3t plus 2 times 3t plus 2, right? You guys know how to FOIL this one, right? So what you get when you FOIL this? So 3t times 3t is 9t squared. And then 3t plus times 2 is 6t. And then 2 times 3t is another 6t. And then 2 and 2 will give us 4. So this gives me 9t squared plus 12t plus 4. Where's your 12t? You don't have your 12t here. That's why you get everything wrong here. So this should be, and then after that, you got 9t squared plus 12t plus 4. And then you need to multiply this whole thing by 10 because you got a 10 in front. So you distribute 10 here, you will get 90t squared plus 120t plus 40. And then you need to distribute your 20 over here to get negative 60t minus 40 plus 60 here. And then this 1800, you have to make it equal to 0. So I have to move it to the other side. So it becomes negative 1800. So this is where you have to use your quadratic equation here because to solve for t. So you still have a 90t squared. I'm going to combine like terms. 120t take away 60t is a 60t. And then the numbers, the 40 and the 40 will cancel out. So what you get is 60 take away 1800. So you get 1740 negative. So I combine like terms here. Now, this is where the quadratic equation here is. I do not suggest you guys to put A, B, C on this number because they are super big. So we need to make this smaller. So the zeros, first thing you need to do is you have to cancel out. So make your number smaller. The smaller the number you are, the easier you use your quadratic formula. Let me see if 174 is divisible by 3. Let me see. Can I do that? Oh, yeah. So guess what? I'm going to divide everything here by 3. So I will get 3t squared here because 9 become 3. 6 become 2. And 174 become 50 something, 58. So this number is so much easier to plug into your quadratic formula here. So when you use your quadratic formula, negative b, which is a negative 2, plus minus square root of b squared, our b is 2, so square is 4, minus 4 times a is 3, and c is negative 58, and all over by 2a. 2a in this case is 2 times 3, which is 6. So what you need to do here is you have to use your calculator and do all this square root number here. So 4 minus 12 times, 4 times 3 is 12, negative 58, right? That's my negative. So that will give me 700. And then you take the square root of it. So this gives me negative 2 plus minus 26.46. Now you cannot round this number. You actually need to use all the decimals. No rounding here. All over 6. You cannot round this. You cannot round this. Once you round this, your answer is going to be wrong. Now this is measuring time. T is time. And you cannot take negative because time cannot be measured in negative. So what you need to do is you need to take negative 2 plus this whole number over 6. So take out your calculator and punch what is negative 2 plus square root of 700 divided by 6 because this is square of 700, the minus you get. Okay, everyone take out your calculator and punch this using your calculator and see what you get. And then give me your answer. Yep, take out your calculator and do it. I'll see how many of you get it right or how many get you wrong. Your answer in this case will be, so for Tonya, in question 3, watch the YouTube back. I think we did question 3 on the first day of class. Yeah, so this is what question 3 looks like. So Tonya, if you're asking for question 3, this is what question 3 looks like. This is how you write your domain here. We did this already in last week. So anyone got an answer here? What is this going to give it to you? -2 plus root 700 divided by 6. Yep. Someone, Grace tell me is 4.742. That is wrong. Yeah, don't be shocked, Grace. That is wrong. That's the reason why I'm checking you guys. You guys know how to use your calculator or not? Yep. If you give me 4.742, that is wrong. Anyone have any answers? 4.077 is correct. This is correct. Yes. So when you guys put this in your calculator, make sure you put a parenthesis on top of here. If you don't put a parenthesis on top, that's where you get the 4.742. That's why you get it wrong. So make sure you have a parenthesis around this before you divide by 6. Okay, that is the one I want to point out to you guys because a lot of students make that mistakes in the test. So don't do that. So that is your answer for question 20. Yep. All right, we're gonna move on to, that's how we do question 20C. So your answer in this case is 4.077. All right, next we're gonna talk about is 2.7. Questions on 2.7 that you have.
Question 20 on 2.7.
Okay, give me a second. 20.
Yes.
Anyone? This one. Good. Same question I want to do. All right. Now, as you guys remember, when you do this section, we call this as inverse function. And when you do inverse function, it has to be one-on-one. Or sometimes we call it, you have to pass the horizontal line test. Okay. So if you look at x squared minus 2, does anyone know what the graph of f of x squared minus 2 looks like? Now, x squared is a parabola. Yes, but what is minus 2 means? Yes, I'll do that, Grace. Transformation. Does anyone know what this minus do to the parabola?
Will that shift it down to on the y-axis?
Yes, you are correct. You are correct. So actually the parabola will, the graph of x squared minus 2 looks something like this. This minus 2 means you move down 2. But as you guys know that if you draw the vertical line test, it fails because it connects twice. See that? So when you draw a vertical line test, this does not pass the vertical line test because it intercepts twice. In order for it to pass, you only intercept one time. So what do we do here is we have what we call as a domain restriction. So you see in the next part over here, x is less than or equal to 0 here. This is what we call as your domain restriction. What is the domain restriction here is domain restriction telling us that instead of taking the whole parabola, you only take parabola that goes from 0 or less on your x-axis. So in another meaning is we just only take this parabola. We will not take that parabola. This side is gone. So that's the meaning of the domain restriction, means we just, if you have this, means we're taking the negative part of it, the left part of it. Now with this, it will pass the horizontal line test because you only intercept one time. So that means this has an inverse function with this domain restriction. So how do you find the inverse function? The part is asking us to find it. So first thing is you have to change your f of x to become y. And then you interchange your variables. So your y will become x and your x will become y. And you solve for y. So how do you solve for y in this case is I add 2 to it. And then I take the square root of it. Now, every time when you take the square root, you got 2 answers, plus or minuses. So this is a part that a lot of students make mistake or doesn't know how to do is this piece. Should we take the plus? Should we take the minus? It all depends on your domain restriction. Since your domain restriction is on the negative, which is less than 0 here, we will take the negative side. If your domain restriction is given us like this, which is a positive side, then we will take the positive of it. You guys with me here? So the inverse function in this case is given to us by negative square root of x plus 2. So a lot of students make mistake here by not giving a negative of it, and that's why you get it wrong. You guys okay here so far?
Yes.
For the graph, so we redid one graph, which is this graph. This is your f of x graph. So how do we graph this x plus 2 with a negative is square root graph looks something like this. This is the square root graph. When you have a negative, it means when you have a plus 2, it means that you move left 2. So this is square root of x plus 2. And then when you have a negative here, this negative is a reflection on the x-axis, so it will go downwards. So this graph that I draw here is negative square root of x. So it looks something like this. So the one that looks something like this will look more towards this graph because you got 2 and 2. Okay, this is 4. This is 4 and 2. This is wrong. So it should be 2 and 2 here. And the reason why I say it's 2 and 2 is because if you look at your number here, you got 2 and 2. You see the 2 and 2? That's why you will get 2 and 2 on this side. Now, next you have to figure out what is the, this one is actually reflected on this dotted purple line, and that is y equals to x. So this graph, all of this graph is reflected on y equals to x. Domain and range, very important information for domain and range. The domain of this function is the same as the range of the inverse function. The range of the original function is the same as the domain. So if you know the domain and range of this function, you just switch them around, and that will be the domain and range for the inverse function. So how do you figure out the domain and range is looking at your graph. That's the easiest way to do it. So, so do you remember this black graph that we drew earlier on? This is at negative 2 here. This is a function. This is the original function. So what is the domain of this graph? And if you do not know, it's already given us by the domain restriction. Remember, they give us a domain restriction. That is the domain in this case. So your domain in this case is from negative infinity to 0. And it's a bracket. And the reason why it's bracket, because there's an equal sign right here. Okay. And what is the range of this graph? Anyone know how to figure out the range, the y value? What y value can you have here? What's the lowest y value can you have for this graph? And what's the highest it goes? Anyone? This is very important. If you doesn't know how to find your domain and range, that means you are in the wrong class. I will put you back in 1150. This is 1180. You should know all this. This is something that I will point out to you guys. You should know all this before you come to my class. If you doesn't know this, highest will be infinity. Yep. Where's the lowest it goes? Negative 2. Yep. So negative 2 to infinity is your range here. So if you know the domain and range of this function, then what is the domain and range of the inverse function? Switch around. So the range will be this. and the domain will be that. So, yep. So if you know your original function, domain and range, the inverse function, you just switch them around. That's how you figure out. Yep. So this is how you do this. This is from, so the domain for this is going to be negative, somewhere here. Negative infinity to 0. So this is negative infinity to 0. And then make sure the 0 is a bracket because it is a, and then the range in this case is bracket negative 2 to infinity, and make sure that infinity is parenthesis. And then for this, you just interchange it. So this domain is the same as this range. So this one, I copy and paste it over here. Okay, don't use infinity. And then the same thing happens to the range of this, the same as domain of that. So it's negative infinity to 0. So this is how we do question number 20. 28 and 29. Question 28 is this function. So what you need to do first on 28 is you have to find the inverse function on both of them, because the 28 is given finding us inverse function dot with the inverse function. So for f of x, you have to find the inverse function of it. Same thing with g of x, you have to find the inverse function of that. So how do you find the inverse function of f of x? Is the same thing I just did just now. I replace this with y, and then I interchange your x and y, and I solve for y. So I add 3 here, and then multiply this by 8, because in order for us to get rid of 1/8, I multiply both sides by 8. So this is the inverse function of y, of f of x, sorry. And now you do the inverse function of g of x. So this is y equals to x cubed. And then I reverse this. This is x, this is y. And then in order for us to get rid of this, I cube it. So the inverse function of g is actually cube root of x. So now you need to find what is g minus 1 dot with f minus 1. And what does that mean is, should we take the inverse of f, put inside the inverse of g, or inverse of g, put inside the inverse of f? Which one is? F to g or g to f? For this question. Yep. So that means that if you look at this, again, this comes last at the end there, right? So what do? Is I take this whole thing, plug it into here. Yep. Put the inverse of f, plug it into the inverse of g. So this is actually a cube root of x, and this x will be replaced by 8x plus 3. And 8 is a perfect cube of 2. So your answer in this case is 2 cube root of x plus 3. So this is how we do question number 28. Okay. So make sure you know how to find the inverse and then plug it in there. 29 is special. It's because if you look at 29, you have to do the dot first and then find its inverse. So for question number 29, you have to do g dot f first. And after that, you do the inverse. So what is g dot f? What you do is you take all the f, plug it into your g. Okay, that's g dot f. F comes last, so you took the f, plug into g. So in this case, we have 2x minus 9. And this x will be replaced by x plus 5, which is from the f function. This is from the f. So what you do is you distribute the 2, you get 2x plus 10 minus 9. So this will give me 2x plus 1. Now this is the g dot f. Now you need to find the inverse function. So what you do is do the same thing what we did last time, how you find the inverse function. Replace your y to become x and replace all your x become y. And you solve for y. So I take minus 1 here, and then I divide by 2. So this is your answer for the inverse of this. X minus 1 over 2. This is how we do question number 29 for this case. So you do need to do the g dot f first, and then after that, do the inverse for it. So it's a little bit different from 28 here. All right, we're gonna go on to 3.1 because we don't have a lot of time left here. So this is the last section you have to do, and for your next week homework, it'll be 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4. So next week homework, you got 3 sections, 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4. Again, we don't have a Zoom meeting next Tuesday, so make sure that if you need help, you either ask the questions, set a one-on-one Zoom meeting with me, or something else. So make sure you guys got to do know how to do this. Question on 3.1. Anyone here have any questions on 3.1?
For question 16 in 3.1, and this sort of applies to 17, 18, 19, and beyond. I was just having some.
Okay, wait,
yeah,
16?
16, yeah.
Okay.
So I was just.
All right, this is fine. Yep. So 16 on 3.1.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be applied to 7. You're right, 17 and 18 and 20, they're all the same.
Yeah, I was just having issues with WebAssign recognizing the proper notation.
Yep. If you know one, you should know how to do 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. They are the same. Yep. So the question wants us in the standard form of this parabola. So again, they use x and y here. So what is the standard form of a parabola is y equals to ax minus h squared plus k. This is the standard form of a parabola. So you just need to figure out your a, your h, and your k, and then plug it in, and then you get your answer like that. So, so the h and k is easily found by finding the vertex. By looking at your graph, the vertex is the most minimum point here, turning point. So it's -1 and -5. This is your hk. So you just plug it in. So my h in this case now is -1, and my k in this case is -5. Now my question is how you figure out a. So in order for us to find a, you use 1 point. See the 1 point they're given to us, 0, -4. So you use this point to find a. 0 is your x. Y is a -4. So what you do is I plug y as a -4 here and x as a 0. So now you got all this, you can solve for a. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this again. So my y is a -4. I need to solve for my a. 0 minus 1 is -1, and you square it, -5 because my k is 5. Now, I just want to point out to you guys a lot of mistake here in the test is having problem solving this for a. So in order for you to solve for a is you have to get rid of this -5, not get rid of this 1. And how do we get rid of this -5? We add 5. So this will give me 1. You do need to square this. When you square this, -1 squared is 1, so it's 1a. So a in this case is 1. So now we got our equation. Y equals to a in this case is 1, which we can ignore it. X, my h is -1, so double negative will make it positive. 1, make sure you square it, and then -5. So my equation for this is my answer. And class, if you do not give me this y equals 2 when you put in here, they will mark you wrong. So in other place, you had to give me y equals to x plus 1 whole thing square minus 5. If you don't give me the y equals to, they will mark you wrong. In your test, if you don't give me the y equals to, you get half a point gone. You guys okay here? How we do this question? 16. Again, questions 16, 17, 18, 19, they are all the same. They always give you a vertex and they give you an extra point. This extra point is to find A. Okay. Same thing happens here. They always give you a vertex and an extra point, and that point is to find A. Okay. So this worked from 16 to 21, the way that I showed to you. Anyone have any questions here on this section 3.1? Graphing. Next thing I'm going to point out to you is how you graph. Let's say this is a question that they want you to graph. So we know that this graph, we just did it just now. When you see the x squared minus 2, this is a parabola. And it will be touched at -2, right? Because that -2 means you touch at -2. So it will look something, the graph will look something like this. So how do you graph this in here? First thing first is you have to pick a parabola, not a line or circle or whatever. Pick a parabola, make sure it's this way, not the other way. And the first thing is you have to give them the vertex. And look at the picture here, the vertex is at 0, -2. No, I don't want that point. There you go. This is the first point. Okay. Now, as you guys know that in order for you to graph everything, you need a second point. So how do you do a second point is you pick any point you want for x and plug it in here and then graph it. So in this case, I will pick x is 1, make it easy. So I plug 1 inside this equation, I will get 1 minus 2. So my y in this case is -1. So the coordinate is 1, -1, because when I plug x is 1, my y is -1. So what do I do here is I just plug 1, -1 here, and they should give me a parabola. This one and this one. There you go. So make sure that when you see the graph, you will get 2 points. One point is your vertex, which is 0, -2. And the other point is any points you want that is not 0, -2 by using like solving just now I showed it to you. So, and that's how you graph this equation. You guys doing all right here so far? How we graph an equation. Next is, there are some questions here that want you to find your x-intercept. This is a lot of students having trouble, like this question number 14. Okay. So do you guys know how to write this in the standard form? This is my last question for you guys. Anyone here know how to write this in the standard form? Your homework is due tonight. Anyone know how to write this in the standard form? Question 14.
Complete the square.
Yes. One way is completing the square, which is you will cry if you do it. Okay, I will tell you right away, straight away for you guys. One way is completing the square. It is a 4-step procedure. It is going to be a very long procedure. That's one way. I'll show you the shortcut way. Okay, so listen carefully. Yes, you can do completing the square. It's not wrong. It's just long. Another way for us to do this is to use the vertex formula. And the vertex formula say -b over 2a. And then f of -b over 2a. This is what we call as a vertex formula. And don't forget your vertex is hk. Always simplify as hk. So what you do in this case is this is your a, this is your b, -1. So you find what is -b over 2a. So -b is -1, so double negative become 1. 2 times a is 7. Okay, so this is 1 over 14. So I already know that h in this case is 1 over 14. Now my k. And how do you find my k is I plug this 1 over 14 into my x. That is the meaning of this. It looks icky. It means that whatever you found here, you plug inside your x in this case. So what we have in this case is F114, 7 times 1 over 14 squared minus 1 over 14 plus 1. And you can use your calculator here to do this work. So I'll be right back. So what we're gonna do in this case is you just need to use a calculator and figure this one out. So 1 over 14 squared times 7, and then minus 1 over 14 plus 1. So you get all this. I don't know if I can make it as a fraction on this. Yes, you have to make it as a fraction. The best way is use your calculator because this calculator doesn't have a fraction symbol. So yes, make sure you use your calculator to figure this one out. It's very easy. Just type it into your calculator. You should get a fraction mode in this case. 27 over 28. So this is your K now. So what you do next is, if you want to write this in a standard form, the standard form is given us by A x minus h squared, very good, plus K. You guys got it, right? You got it. So what you do here is the A is the same A that we have here, which is 7. Minus h is your vertex here, 1 over 14 square. And K in this case is 27 over 28. And that's your answer. So this is where you put in over here. 7 x minus 1 over 14 square plus, what's my K again? 27, 28. Thank you, Brian, for that. This is how we do this without doing completing the square. And your life is so much easy, right? This is like you find your vertex, and then once you find your vertex, you just plug it into your formula. Your vertex is h and k, and then the a is whatever a you have in the front here. Just plug it back in there. And that's your answer. So you do not need to perform completing the square here. Same thing happens in your test. You can also do it like that. Okay. Now, one thing about people have a problem finding the axis of symmetry. A lot of students find your axis of symmetry, which is the same as h. So a lot of students, when they do the axis of symmetry, they give me 1 over 14. Like here, you type 1 over 14, and you will get wrong. Does anyone know why? If you 1 over 14 is correct, it's not wrong. That is the right axis of symmetry. What is missing here? Anyone know why people mark you wrong? Same thing in your test. If you give me 1 over 14 in your axis of symmetry, you don't get full points. Yes, Parker, you got it right, because you forget x equals 2. Okay, so make sure you guys understand that these are all lines, not a point. So you need to have x equals 2. Now, next thing you need to do is to find the x-intercept. So how do you find your x-intercept? In this case is you have to either factor or use quadratic formula. So when you do your when you do your quadratic formula here, you have to leave everything in square root. Means you cannot use your calculator to figure it out. So this is what I'm talking about here. So let's find the x-intercept here. So it's negative b, so it's negative 1 plus minus square root of 1 minus 4 times a is 7, and c is 1, all over 2a. 2 times 7 is 14, right? 2 times 7 is 14. And then again, we will use your, your calculator to do this piece. So for that case, what's my calculator for that? So it's 1 minus 28, because 4 times 7 times 1 is 28. So 1 minus 28 is negative. So this is a square root of negative 27. So if you get yourself a negative number inside a square root, means this will be DNE. And what is DNE stands for? DNE means that this graph will not cross on the x-axis. So that means it does not have an x-intercept. So for this question, it is DNE because it doesn't cross on it. Okay. So let's say that if I change this into something else different, let's say I change it to become 7x squared. Let's say I just change it negative x minus 1. For example, I change this. So if you want to find the x-intercept in this case, you just again do the quadratic formula. So it's positive 1 to negative become positive. Plus and minus, you square the b square, which is 1, minus 4ac, 4 is 7, c is negative 1, all over by 14, 2a, right? So now we're going to calculate this piece now. So last time we have 1 minus 28. This time we have 1 plus 28 because 2 negative become positive. That will give me 29. Now, then you need to break 29 down. Now, the good news is 29 cannot break it down. So your answer is 1 plus minus square root of 29 over 14. This is your answer in this case. But for your online homework, when you want to put this as your online homework, it's going to be in coordinates form. And they want you to, sometimes they want you, like this question, they want you to put small and large. So make sure you know which one is the small one. So the small one is the minus. So you have to put 1 minus square root of 29. Oh, sorry. Fraction first. 1 minus square root 29 over 14, for example, that question. Comma 0. Make sure that this is in a coordinate form. And then the other one is 1 plus square root of 29. So it's 1 plus square root of 29 over 14, comma 0. So this is how you write your answer if you get this, if you try to do this, and make sure it's in coordinates. So if you don't put a 0 behind, they will mark you wrong. Now, this is for 29, which we know we cannot break it down. But what happens if this is 28? Okay, let's say this you do, I think is 28, not 29. 28, you can break it down because it's not prime. So you had to do 4 times 7. And 4 is a perfect square of 2. So your answer in this case is 1 plus minus 2 square root 7, because this will give me 2 and 7, all over by 14. And then I got students do this now in the homework or test. Oh, 2 and 14, I can cross out, become 1 and 7. If you do this, it's all wrong. Do not do that, okay? So what is the best way to do it? You cannot cross out like this. The reason why is because of the plus and minus here. So the only way you can do it is you separate this 14 into 2. Now you can cancel this. So this is your answer in this case. This is correct. But if you cancel like this, this is whole thing wrong. You guys are with me here, how you do this? So they are very yeah, you guys got it? So make sure you guys understand this. This is very important. And yes, you will get this in your tests. And yes, if I ask for x-intercept, it has to be in coordinates form. So if you did not give me that 0 here, you will get it wrong. Okay. And same thing with axis of symmetry. You have to give me x equals 2. Without x equals 2, you will get it wrong also. Okay. You guys all right here so far? Anyone have any questions for me? Anyone have any questions for me? This is the end of it. I'm going to stop sharing here. Now, if you do have questions, please let me know. We can do a one-on-one or any questions you have. Most of the questions that you ask me is already been answered for you, like the x. If someone forget to put x equals 2. Some of you use for this case they use the calculator. They use 1 plus minus square root of 28 over 14, and then what they do is they use that calculator and give me a bunch of decimals, and then you put it into your answer. They mark you wrong because they do not want decimals. They want in square root form. Okay. So how do you know a question needs decimals or not? Read the question carefully. If the question, like this kind of question, they don't ask for decimals, that means they want everything in square root form. We call it the exact form. But once you read some question and they want it in a decimal form, then you will need to use your calculator. I didn't see anything. They will say round your answer into 3 decimal places or something else like that. Then you use your calculator. But if they didn't ask you for I don't see anything with a decimal here. But if they ask you for, so mostly everything here is going to be exact form. And what's the meaning of exact form? Means that it's all going to be in the square root like this. Okay. So just want to point out to you, same thing in the test. I do take this as your answer. I will not take your decimals as your answer. I won't give you full points. So make sure you leave your answer everything in the square root form like this. Anyone have any questions for me before we get going here? Stop right.